So when we get a new brief, we do not have a set process or checklist that we go through. I think every project is a little bit different, and you're always kind of iterating and doing things differently. I will say, in thinking about it, I do think there's a sequencing that happens. So the first piece to me that always happens is what I call the discovery period, and that's where we're just digging in and trying to understand the category, the consumer, what is the real challenge facing the client, all of that. So there's a kind of, that's the messiest period, but sometimes the funnest period of sort of exploration and discovery. We typically move from that into some kind of period of what I would call distillation or synthesis, right? So we've gotten a ton of stuff, however we got it. I don't have a checklist for how we're going to get it, but we've gotten a lot of information, insight, data in the first phase. Second phase, we're trying to distill that and say what's really meaningful, what are the themes here, and how do we break this down into something kind of focused that can help solve the problem. And then to me, the sort of final phase then is actually translating that into almost like an ideation phase, translating it into an idea. And for a planner, I don't mean like a tactical idea, I mean like a strategic idea of how we're going to solve the problem based on everything we know. So I feel like those are the three phases we tend to go through, but I don't have a specific checklist or process of how we do that.
The typical approach, I mean, I think one of the things is we don't know where we're going to get the answer from. And so we try and go in we try to build an approach where rather than making a big bet early on, is we're looking for multiple small bets. And so as we think about our brand, or think about the category, or think about our consumer, or think about what's going on in culture, we're really kind of exploring those modules to understand where we're finding kind of hotspots or areas of energy. And then rather than synthesize that to one brief very early on in the process, we try and bring 2 to 3 points of view to our creative teams and our account teams just to get their input as well and really have a real conversation. And so the more, we try and kind of bring as many kind of eclectic perspectives to the table as possible, but get feedback as quickly as possible. And then I think the other thing that's really exciting is the opportunity to learn by doing has never been better. I think it's becoming easier and easier for us to produce creative work, to put creative work out there into the real world. And so more and more what we're looking for is an interesting possibility rather than a perfectly tested piece of work that we all feel 100% certain is going to work. More and more we're looking for interesting opportunities that we can put out there and see how they do in the market versus analysis by paralysis and not doing anything until we get that perfect test score.
The way we approach a new strategic challenge or a new brief is really try to see everything with kind of fresh eyes. I think the more that you sort of process and bring process to bear, it sometimes is constraining. I feel that you need to sort of have a checklist. You need to be looking at understanding the areas you need to cover to get to the answer. But if you're sort of slavish to a process, I think that can be problematic, because I think every particular problem has its own unique solution. I like to look at everything with sort of fresh eyes and almost a blank sheet of paper, looking very positively at what the potential opportunity could be. So we start to take that blank sheet of paper and sort of populate it with things that help us get to the answer. So, and those things are quite variable. They could be, we really feel that the corporate culture is important for us to understand, because there's something about this culture that we should be talking about and that makes this brand or makes this company unique. So we will spend time, and we'd go back to the client and say, especially if it's a new client, we'll say, we really need to understand the culture of your company. We want to go and talk to everyone from the CEO to the kind of most junior person, and we really understand what makes you tick. That could be one thing. We could think, for example, that the category is really dynamic and innovative and there's interesting things happening in it, and that maybe we shouldn't be talking to consumers. Maybe doing focus groups, 20 focus groups around the country is sort of a waste of time, so to speak. And maybe we need to pick 5 experts who are leading edge of that particular category, who we can sit with, and they can educate us and tell us not only where the business currently is, but where it's heading. So we sit down and we try to work out an approach to trying to what the best mix of things we need to do to get to the answer when we take on each brief. But I think some of the most important things are, what is the problem? What is the business problem we're trying to solve? And I think a lot of times clients don't necessarily know what that is, and they're really looking for someone to come in and tell them. And so it's worth spending a lot of time trying to answer that, and trying to kind of go through a bunch of data to try and understand where the brand sits, where its users sit, what its kind of history has been, what the trajectory is. Are sales declining? Are they increasing? Are they increasing at a rate that is in line with the rest of the category? What about the brand? Is the brand strong? Is it being seen by consumers as a leader? Is it a laggard? Is it somebody in financial services, for example, who's still being crippled by what happened in 2008? And you need to take a really hard look at what are you going to do to change that. So we approach everything with kind of a fresh perspective, understanding there are certain things we can do from a planning point of view to bring insight to bear to help us answer those questions. But we are pretty flexible as to what the tools that we could use to get to that answer.